Hey, welcome to the 13th lesson on C++. Throughout this lesson, we will learn how to work with files in the C++ programming language, write data to them, and also read data from files. To work with files, we need to first include a new directive. It's called fstream. With this module, we can both write data to a file and read data from a file. Let's see how we can write something to any file. To do this, we need to create an object, or in other words, a variable based on a class called fstream. If we decipher it literally, it would be pronounced as output file stream. With this object, we can open a file and write some information into it. After that, we need to write the name of the object. The name can be anything, but I'll call it file. Next, we need to write parentheses where we pass some parameters. This approach may seem a bit unconventional to you, because we haven't yet studied object-oriented programming. There, we will learn how to create classes and objects. Similar constructions won't raise any questions for you later. For now, let's just write this syntax and remember that you are creating an object based on the fstream class. Later in the course, we will learn to create such objects and classes ourselves. So, in these parentheses, we need to pass two parameters. The first parameter is the name of the file we will be working with. If you don't have files, you can write any name here. I want the file to be created automatically, so I'll write any name and call it text.txt. The second parameter indicates how the file should be opened. Here we write iOS base and then refer to output. In other words, we open the file for writing some information. So remember that this construction is just the format for opening the file. Next, I suggest you write a condition by which we can determine whether we have opened the file correctly. The thing is, when working with files, unforeseen errors can often occur. I can safeguard myself and check if it is open. If the file is open, then we can work with it. If it is not open, we cannot work with it. To check if the file is open, we refer to the object and use the dot operator to access this open function. This function returns either true or false. So if the function returns true, the file is open. If it returns false, the file did not open, and we cannot work with it. We check if the file is open, and if it is, the code inside the curly braces will be executed. Here, let's insert some information into the file. This is done quite simply. We refer to the file where we want to write information. Just like with regular screen output, we write text, but instead of cout, we write the file where we need to input information. Inside our file, this text will be written. Finally, every time you finish working with the file, you must close it. This is usually a rule. If you open a file, you must close it at the end. If you don't do this, then in the computer's RAM, space will be constantly occupied by the open file. If you open 10, 20, or 1000 files, at some point, the RAM will be filled, and the program will stop working. You can close it like this: simply refer to your file and call the close function. That's it. We opened the file, checked if it's open, wrote text to the file, and closed it. Now I suggest testing the program. First, you can open your project either in File Explorer or directly in the project. You will see that a file named text.txt has been created. There are many files that appear when you create a project, but for now, ignore them. So, run the program and see that the text.txt file has been created. Let's open it and make sure that the string we wrote to the file is there. Yes, excellent. We wrote one line using the program, and it was successfully recorded in the file. Now let's learn how to read data from a file. First, I want to comment out this code because I don't want a file to be created and information to be written to it every time. A little below, I will write the code for reading data from the file. To do this, we need to create a new object based on a class called fstream, which stands for input file stream. This is a slightly different class, and it is used for reading data. Unlike the previous one. Here, we do the same thing as before. I'll create the same object called file, and then I specify in the parameters which file I will be working with. I'll work with the file we recently created. Also, there is no need to add a second parameter here because we always open the file for reading. Next, we need to create a string variable, and let's call it temp. We will write the text we get from the file into this variable. This is done quite simply. Previously, we used the cin function to get some information from the user and write it to a variable. Here, we do exactly the same thing, but instead of this function, we write file, that is, we read data from the file and write it to the temp variable. And of course, at the end, we need to close our file again. So at the end, we add the close function. Also, let's display the information on the screen. To do this, we write the standard command for screen output before closing the file. Now you can run the program. In the end, we will notice that instead of our text, "Hello World," only one word is recorded. Now we will learn how to output all the information from the file. The thing is, the current construction we wrote allows us to read only the first word from the text file. That is, we simply do not read the other words, so only the first word was displayed on the screen. If I want to read more than just the first word, then in that case, I need to write something else. Let me comment out the line of code where we write data to the string and make a few edits to the code. See, we need to refer to our file and then use a function called getLine. This function allows us to read a certain number of characters from the file. Here, let's say that we will read data from the file and put it into the temp variable. After that, we put a comma, and after the comma, we specify the number of characters we want to read. Let's say we want to read 100 characters. And now you can see that the function gives us an error. The error tells us that in the first parameter, we should specify not a string but an array of characters. So, let's create the same array of characters and say that it will consist of 100 characters. Let's try to run something like this. Now we can see that all the information from our file has been displayed on the screen. Well, now we have learned how to write data to a file and how to read data from a file. And overall, our lesson comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Until we meet again, goodbye.